is joining me. Brad is the managing partner and founder of Saige Partners, which is a recruiting and staffing firm that has made its mark by delivering top-notch talent solutions in the engineering and IT sectors. Brad is a seasoned leader with over a decade of experience in the recruiting industry, and under his leadership, Saige Partners has earned the prestigious Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. He's on that list. So today we're going to dig into Brad, talk about how he had that success, what his journey was in the space, what he's kind of seeing has changed in the market over the years of doing this. I think there's going to be some valuable insights for you guys around leadership, scaling a company, and ultimately, what Brad feels is going to be the future of the recruiting industry. So Brad, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the invite, Donnie.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'm happy you're here. If you guys are listening live, feel free to go into the chat. Let us know where you're from, what industry you're focused on. And as we go throughout the interview here, feel free to throw your own questions in the chat, and I will try to get to them as we can. But let's go ahead and dive in here, Brad. First question on every guest that comes on the show is, how did you get into this industry? I don't think any of us went to college for this. So how'd you get in the recruiting industry, and how'd you get your start?
Yeah, like many that I've interviewed to join me in this adventure, I kind of tripped into it, to be honest with you. So I had been in the transportation and logistics industries for 25 years, worked for the same company for that period of time. Had a lot of fun doing it, so on and so forth. With a couple of years left to go in that career, I realized and understood that, I maybe wanted to do something with the next 25 years that would reshape my career, do something a little outside the box. But just being fully honest, I wasn't exactly sure what that was. Just knew that what I didn't want to do is walk away from the relationships, kind of the transportation logistics business in general. But I knew that I just didn't want to stay in the capacity for which I was carrying at that time. So started looking at and actually worked with some business brokers with different opportunities that maybe would align with some of the standards that I had. And at the end of the day, we ended up looking at a couple of firms that ultimately were for sale, but not really sure if the core values and kind of where I wanted to go with the businesses in the recruiting space aligned with where I wanted to be. So I ended up hiring Tom Erb, actually, out of Ohio, came over and worked with me for a couple of weeks and helped us to develop a business plan back in early 2017. So we LLC'd in February of 2017 with a primary focus of being in transportation and logistics, which not slowly, but rather quickly moved into banking, finance, and insurance, which then led us to IT and engineering. So as we sit here today, we're still kind of operating under those same premises, under those same principles, but we tripped into the industry just based on the fact that I had an entrepreneurial itch and wasn't exactly sure what that was going to be, but found a liking to not only the recruiting industry, but recognizing that in transportation logistics specific, there may have been a hole there. It's a different industry, requires, someone that maybe has that knowledge, if you will. So wanted to leverage that knowledge, put it into the recruiting industry, and start to build relationships again from a different capacity. So since then, I've remained very much involved in the Iowa Motor Truck Association, the American Trucking Association, as well as other ventures, obviously ASA, that has kind of blended my two passions together, I guess, recruiting and transportation. So it's been a lot of fun since. So
awesome. And you said right away you engaged with Tom Erb. I've got his books back here somewhere, but what was the decision right out of the gate when you started this, just to hire a coach or a consultant or something, somebody to kind of help guide you away?
Not knowing what I didn't know, and knew and understood that, did a little bit of research and was looking for someone that was maybe the best in the business that could help not only facilitate the opportunity or the business, but me as well, to kind of give me some tricks to the trade, some pitfalls that maybe obviously at his point in his career he had been through, and so on and so forth. So what could he assist me with that I could maybe get ahead so that I wasn't tripping into those at the same time. So, great decision, quite frankly. Tom was and still remains what I would consider to be a good contact today. We don't talk as often as we did at one time, but at the end of the day, still have a very, very high level of respect for Tom. So.
Excellent. And kind of when you went out, what was one of the unexpected challenges? You go start this business, kind of new industry, what was, maybe what you thought it was going to be like versus what it actually was like once you got in there and started playing?
Absolutely. There was a lot of challenges that I didn't foresee coming. First and foremost, getting clients, getting them to understand the services that we were going to provide and the reason for, the way that we were able to, the reason or the direction we wanted to go with billing, so on and so forth, ultimately was a hard sell,
Yep.
and then coming into that with, okay, so who do you work with now, especially in the first 6 months? Well, I don't have any clients yet, but, you could be the first. And that became, that was a little bit of a first, the first 90 days until client one came on board was a bit of a grind, a much greater grind than what I would have expected, quite frankly. Just assumed that relationships would kick in and we would be off and running. But ultimately, it took some selling. And, once we were able to get into that first client, I instantly went to them and said, hey, can you get me a review with respect to your experiences so that I could leverage that review into the next client? So it just started from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How long did it take you before you started, building out a team and adding people around you?
Well, I got I got pretty fast on that. Ultimately, as quickly as I started down the transportation and logistics area, it wasn't long before some areas that I didn't have expertise in, whether it be in industrial and construction, weren't there. So I had to start building out a team. So it was June. So I launched and we kind of LLC'd in February. Okay. We started to build a team in June and then launched IT and engineering in January of 2018. So.
Wow, quick. So within a year, you were already different divisions, multiple team members and things like that.
Yeah, and then the other greatest challenge was, which I was warned of when we launched, was don't try to become jack of all trades and master of none. So I quickly realized after going down a couple of different avenues that I ultimately had to hire expertise in each one of those categories because I was starting to lose traction with regards to where my focus needed to be, which was transportation and logistics. But I needed somebody that could spearhead these other two avenues so that understood those industries way better than I did. So.
Yeah, that's actually a really good, kind of thing you bring up there, because I think this is a common challenge for a lot of folks. So if you don't mind, I mean, how do you kind of do that with your teams? Do you basically hire one vertical expert or industry expert and then they run a full desk there? Or how do you kind of run
things? Yeah, in our world, we do things a little bit different than that. We do hire an industry expert, but usually in the sales aspect of it, so they're not full desk. We are oftentimes taking a very short stint of full desk to kind of get things going and get a first client. But as quickly as we get a certain book of business, one or two opportunities, we're wanting that salesperson to stay out front, and we shift and start just building a team of recruiters underneath that individual. And depending upon what that bandwidth is and how quickly that comes on board, it may be that we've got to shift somebody from another team over to them to help support that focus for a short period of time until we start to build it out. So.
Yeah. Now, what are you kind of doing, in a time like this where I would imagine different verticals are performing in different levels? Like some might be hot, some might be cold. Are you guys doubling down on some or status quo in all things kind of thing?
We are, at the end of the day, we have had to make some adjustments, with regards to just different industries. It's no secret that IT was a little slow there for a little while, so on and so forth. And so, but we certainly have had other opportunities in other verticals and other industries that, back to, we don't want to be jack of all trades, master of nothing. We still take the time then to educate that individual that we're moving into that other vertical to ensure that, we're walking the walk and talking the talk. But we are able to, because of our size, still rather small, we're able to flex on that and make those adjustments and ensure that, those that we've hired have got opportunity to be successful. So.
Yeah. Awesome. What are some of the biggest shifts that you've seen just to the recruiting landscape in general over the last, couple of years?
I would say, the first couple of years for me were challenging. And then it seemed as if, the market itself, while I know COVID came with its own set of challenges and some adjustments, for us, it actually came at a pretty good time. We were already at that time remote. And so even industries that were still hiring were looking for people that were still active and still looking to, work in the recruiting space. And so the COVID period actually did okay for us. And so then as we came out of COVID, we had a pretty strong client base that we developed even through COVID that really allowed for us to, I guess, take advantage of great times, so to speak. Post-COVID, we're just I don't, lucrative is probably a little strong, but the opportunity to, I guess, be selective was there,
Yep.
and to start building out those verticals. And I would suggest that, as end of 2023 and into 2024, we've had to kind of go back to the basics of staffing in our world, kind of that, as you and I were talking just a little bit,
Right.
just kind of that real challenge of, you got to go out and you got to really hammer hard to find the clients, not only just a client, but the client you want to partner with,
Right.
and I
Right.
would say that our primary focus and one of our core elements of who we are is we want to partner. We're not here for, oh, shoot, they've got an opportunity out there on LinkedIn. We want to work on that. We're looking to truly partner with that individual. So we're not wanting to shotgun the sales efforts. We're more
Right.
spearheaded in that regard. So today, we're having to really dig deep to continue to just cycle through those connections and cycle through those contacts, But
Right.
as I shared with you, I'm a firm believer that would suggest that the business today is the way the business was always intended to be. While it is still coming with some challenges, we're dialing for dollars. You got to hammer the phones. You got to go back to the basics of the way the reason we're here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I know we talked about that, prior to, is like, what are you doing to cut through the noise? Are you trying to be more flashy, or is it just fundamentals, right? Because there's a lot, like you said, it's harder to get a client. It's harder to attract top talent right now. What are you doing to cut through the noise?
We had you had Steve Guest, has been a new contact of mine over the last probably 3, 4, 5 months, somewhere in there. But at the end of the day, have become an acquaintance with him, I guess, with just different exchanges, so on and so forth. But we actually read his book as an organization, and then I took a flyer and just asked Steve if he would help me ensure that I was going to do right with his book and answering a few questions, and he acknowledged that and gave me the opportunity to chat with him and ensure that we were going to utilize the strategies that he had from his book, that I didn't misrepresent them, I guess, at the end of the
Right.
day. And so one of the things that my key takeaway there was just how, we can wish for the business to be easier, or we can change our strategy and work harder.
Right.
I mean, it's like I continue to suggest to our team, I'd love to apologize for the fact that this job can't be done in 35 hours, but it can't. It just
Mhm.
is what it is. Hard work prevails, in
Yep.
this industry at this point in time. And as far as I'm concerned, for as far as I can see right now, and I'm not going to utilize any different strategy in the meantime, it's a hard job. It's a very, very difficult job. It's sales 101. You've got to, make sure that you're being honest, make sure that you're doing all the right things to attract the right talent and also the right clients. So,
Yep.
It's the basics. So,
Right. Now, you guys are an Inc. 5000, firm, like I said in the beginning. Like, what does that what does that award mean to you and the team?
It's great. It's awesome for internal morale, as well as obviously we like to utilize it for, the obvious advertising, if you will,
Right.
but again, for the most part, for me, it's kind of one of those things where I feel like the hard work that the team has put in, it's more of a, there's an accolade for that, the
Right.
efforts, the hard work that you guys have all put forth. I mean, the magic is in the team, and when we can provide them with the fact that, hey, I think last year, 2 years ago, we were number 4,400 and something. I don't remember exactly. We kind of got up into the twos, So at the end of the day, it's been rewarding in that regard as well. Not only that
Right.
we made it, but we're actually also progressing in the right direction,
Yeah.
So it wasn't a one and done. Gosh, you got lucky. It was, guys, if we work harder, we can move our way up. So it's
Right.
been, so.
That's awesome. Now, is that something that, you did kind of allude to, but did it get you any other business and other opportunities, or to just kind of enhance the brand, or?
I think it just enhanced the brand.
Right.
I don't know that we have necessarily recognized, other than it validates that we're here. We're
Right.
validated, we're serious. We've even went so far as to provide the all the information that's needed to be part of the Inc. 5000. So, at the end of the day, it validated us. And I don't know that I can necessarily put my finger on the fact that it has brought us more business, but I will say it certainly hasn't hurt. So,
Right, right. Now you talked about how, this is something you used for the team to kind of motivate, them and, hey, we hit this number this year, we can get that number next year. How much do you think your company culture has played into your success and the growth and achieving that?
I think it's a lot of fun for them, and I think at the end of the day, it helps to ensure individuals because, kind of a key element for Saige Partners is, when we're 4 years into what we consider a 10-year plan. A
Okay.
10-year plan, there's no magic in the 10-year plan. We'll create another 10-year plan after that 10 years, but without a plan, you don't have action. So we've taken that 10-year plan, what the awards from Inc. 5000, as well as we live in what's called the corridor here. We've been on that 2 years in a row. I think last year, 2 years ago, we were number 22. This year, we were number 3, and at the end of the day, what that does is validate to everyone that the plan does work. Again, as we rolled in through December 2023, December 31st, 2023,
Right.
we were within like $18 of that plan. That was 3 years in. This December 31st will be 4. We've got 6 more years to go. So,
right.
But it also re-encourages or reinforces that we're serious about that plan, and those that are working for us have an opportunity. Again, it's not stalemate at this opportunity. If you really want to progress and have opportunities as we grow, more opportunities are going to grow up, or
Right.
unfold, I should say.
Right. Right. Well, to achieve what you guys have been able to achieve as a team, obviously that starts with leadership. For you, like, what are some of the strategies or what do you do to empower your team? Obviously invest into coaching and outside resources, but what are some of the other things you're doing to kind of really empower them and keep them on that, path?
Sure. And I would say it starts with hiring, at the end of the day for us, again, if we go into the hiring process with core values in mind, our core values are HITT, have fun, invested, tenacious, and transparent, and we feel that if we utilize that through our interview process internally and also externally, but if we utilize it internally, we're able to then ensure that individuals, because as you and I know, that there's different styles to have fun, but what's your
Right.
definition of have fun? Does it align with Saige Partners' style of having fun? Having fun in our world is winning. At the end of the day, we're all virtual, and at the end of the day, it's very, very hard to keep energy levels high.
Right.
And so what keeps energy levels high is a celebration. So we get together as a team every single morning. We have morning huddles. We have a full team, what we call an L10, on Mondays for an hour and a half, and that's a very transparent meeting. So if you're having any issues, any concerns, or do you have anything to offer that could maybe help us in an area that we're struggling, it allows for that transparency part of our core values to really come through. So
Right.
even the development of the core values, to be honest with you, Donnie, 5 years ago, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we took our entire team at that time, which wasn't very many, but 8 or 9 of us, we closed a door and we worked on core values for about 5 hours, and we just put them all on a whiteboard, narrowed it down to four, and then we defined them, and so then we decided that not only did we define them, but we're not just going to put them on a poster, hang them on a wall. Let's live them out.
Yeah.
So,
That was going to be my next question is, there's so many people that have core values, but then they make them, they create them, and then they're in their Google Drive folder sitting somewhere. Like, what do you guys do is it kind of part of your meetings? Is it on, obviously you're not in an office. So,
it's part of our meetings. And then because we're a transparent company, we get together quarterly as a full team, and we expose the financials, we expose our successes, we expose our losses, good and bad, but we also then we do what's called core value callouts. So at the end of the day, we get to determine from a leadership perspective. We not only use the whole team to determine, who has done well or who would you give a core value call out to for the last quarter, but then as a leadership team, we narrow that all the way down to one person that gets what we call the HIT award, and we've been doing that now for a few years. And I find that to be very, very beneficial because it comes with a trophy and, just the recognition, but it's someone that has displayed over the last 90 days all core values. They had fun, they were invested, they were tenacious and transparent. It's not all about who's leading in the numbers. It's not all about who's having the most amount of success. It's all about who's having success, who's having fun, who's invested, and who's sharing the most amount of information. So
that's got to be something your team really enjoys.
I think so. I mean, again, it's, we've got we're a 100% open door organization,
Right.
and at the end of the day, if we can continue to work on that, I mean, as you can imagine, being remote as everybody can, and I think some of this comes from my days of transportation. It's like, a small seed on a Monday is a full tree by Friday if not addressed,
Right.
and so what can we do to ensure that what wasn't even really a problem, but in the way it was delivered, maybe came across as one, it could have been solved. So the
Yeah.
transparency side of what we do, I think, is very, very powerful.
Right. Now, how do you balance kind of your long-term vision with kind of the day-to-day? You said you got your kind of 5 to 10 year plan. How do you balance that in terms of like the day-to-day operations?
So what's really, really awesome about our 10-year plan is that we backed it all the way back down to year one, and then we take it to a quarter, and then we take that quarter and we back it into months, and then we take that month and we back it into weeks.
Love it.
So, at the end of the day, that plan gets reset every single quarter. So if we have a bad quarter last quarter, but we know that the annual plan is this and the 10-year plan is this, we maybe have to find some avenues to where we can make up some ground,
Right.
I mean, and again, if we're ahead, we certainly don't go, well, now we can take this quarter off, but at the end of the day, if we're behind, we take the next quarter to try to figure out what we can do to plan ahead and build things back up,
Right.
So it breaks it down, kind of, I read a book, it's probably been 8 years ago or whatever. It's called The Great Game of Business. It's zero to do with staffing, but a lot to do with just business. And it had everything to do with the fact that, everybody in the organization needs to know what their participation is. And if they don't know what their participation is, it's hard for them to participate. I
Right.
mean, at the end of the day, a busy week feels busy. No question. But what was your participation in that week?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that everybody on the team knows their portion of that participation. And oh, by the way, we're so small that if your participation isn't up to speed, we're way off track on this 1 year and then even more importantly, the 10-year target. So
Right. Right. What do you feel like in terms of like some new things that are coming up on the horizon? Like, what are you and your team kind of looking for in terms of trends, or you guys trying to adopt new technology, and how do you kind of balance, technology adoption with making sure you're true to your core values?
100%. AI scares me, because again, at the end of the day, automation scares me, AI scares me because we are a people business, and I think if you're not careful, if you rely upon automation and so on and so forth to take over what it is that we do and take the people element out of it, Katie bar the door. I think the industry itself, it becomes, I don't want to say irrelevant, but we become resume sourcers, if you will, and so at
Right.
the end of the day, I think, we continue to look at that and continue to balance it. You certainly don't want to get behind on efficiencies by any means. And
Right.
so we're constantly, always open to looking at new opportunities. I mean, and we look at a lot of them, quite frankly, and probably to a point where my team is like, geez, can we stop? I mean, but we're just looking, but I want to make sure that it doesn't cross that threshold of going,
Right.
well, just wait until the resumes come in and then start making phone calls. I mean, most of the technology today, if you're not careful, can make it appear that way. But if you utilize that technology, I don't know, I'll use activities as an example. So if you've got a goal to have 200 activities in a day, for example, and I can't even tell you what those are right now, but you've got a product that can get you to 400, you should remain on track to 200 and don't utilize it to replace your activities.
Right.
So we're wide open to always looking at new, latest, greatest opportunities. Although I'll be honest, we probably do more shopping than buying,
Right.
but it's because we don't want to get behind. And we found some good stuff. I mean, there's been some great opportunities, even within our own ATS. I mean, we just continue to. If you always do what you've always done, we had a call with them this morning to go, okay, it's been a couple of months since we've caught up. What's new? What can we do differently?
Right.
So,
Well, I think that's a good message because there's a lot of folks that I run across that, just putting it bluntly, they feel like that the technology is going to save them. The technology is going to be the new thing that generates all their business, or, gets them the leads or creates their content or whatever. And a lot of times it's doing, more harm than good. Now, this is coming from a guy that I love automation. I teach my people
sure.
automation, but it's knowing when and where to use that. So you're not burning down bridges, as you go down that. How have you balanced like making sure that this is, I'm not chasing the shiny object here. This has to align with my strategy. This has to align with my core values.
Yep. And we coach it out, to a point where sequencing is a term, that we use, a lot of sequencing. And I know a lot of people use that, and sequencing can appear as if I'm going to plug that in and have it do 8 touches. Well, if it's a set it and forget it mode, the results support that. Again, I think whether it's from the client's perspective or the candidate's perspective, I am a firm believer that shines through, and at the end of the day, we're all recipients of it in our own world. I know while they're getting better, I still know most of the time when it's AI driven or something that was automated versus that has that personal touch, so we want to leverage technology, but we just don't want to take advantage of it. So how do we control that is the question. And that is, we just continue to manage and monitor the activities. I will say this though, we are, while I say that, the last thing that we want to do as an organization is micromanage. I go back to even the terminologies that Steve Jobs used to use. You're silly to hire a smart person and tell them what to do, and so we continue to try to find those individuals that also have a desire to balance that technology as well, and so at the end of the day, it's not a big arm wrestling match for us, because most people that work for us want to live by those core values, and you can't do that if you automate your system. So again, we want to be efficient, but we just don't want to outrun our core values. So.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's good to hear, I can tell just from going, through this interview here, how much you guys kind of really stick to the core fundamentals of sales, marketing, recruiting, business development, and then look at, things that can help improve along the way. But it doesn't seem like you guys have deviated too far from the core fundamentals and the hard work and the rolling up the sleeves.
100%. Probably helps that I'm old, at the end of the day.
You're like, I don't want to learn tech. Screw that shit. Yeah.
But I don't want to learn new stuff. And at the end of the day, I'm not opposed to learning new stuff, but I still am just old school with respect to, I learned a very long time ago, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room to outwork everybody that's sitting there, and so it's still a very difficult business. And anybody that thinks this is a 9 to 3 or a 9 to 4 business is going to really, really struggle. It is a grind, it's, and we owe it to our clients. We owe it to our candidates to put in 45, 50 hours a week. One of the things that we coached through COVID and thereafter, it's no secret that salaries were being chased, and at the end of the day, if money was the only factor, we just weren't right. We weren't the right partner to find you the right fit. Because at the end of the day, those things outrun their course, and you'll be the first one to be laid off, or you're not going to like your job, or the client's not going to like you, and so we kind of, we want to ensure that we're there to career coach as well. If we feel it's a bad idea, or for some reason we don't feel the mutual connection, we need to get off the bus, and just be honest with that transaction and go, this is nothing but a transaction, and it's the one thing that's probably the hardest part to keep out of this business is transactions, if I'm being honest, because everybody's just like, I haven't had success in 6 or 8 weeks. I just got to, it doesn't matter, stick to the basics, stick to your core values, and it'll all come back around,
How do you kind of, is that something you talk to your team about on a regular basis? Because for you, it's like you're just talking about it so naturally, which is like, you just do your business, you run things the right way, you're right by your companies, you're right by your candidates that you're working through. To you, that's probably second nature. I can tell you from my seat, it's not. Like, a lot of people are in this industry purely because there's big money to be made. You get a $20,000 to $30,000, $40,000 fee. I could do that a couple of times a year. Is that something you guys are talking about? Like, hey, we're not transactional. Are you guys just focused on into your core values?
No, yeah. We talk about it a lot. As a matter of fact, we kind of changed our terminology from an impact, if you will, or a transaction to lives impacted. So we actually utilize the term internally, lives impacted. So, if you're literally, in most cases, asking someone that has a family to leave a career and build another career, if there's something in that doesn't trip your trigger, that would suggest that it's not all about the money, you check your ego, because, you're going to get hung up somewhere, that process worked in 22 and 23 probably, or early 23, but now that we're back to the way this business was intended to be, I love our core values because nothing has changed. We're
Right.
very, very fortunate to have a team that is focused on impacting lives as much as they are about making money.
Right. Outside of technology, is there anything you guys are doing? Because this industry is always changing. I think technology is the first thing we think about, when we're thinking about change. But, what else are you guys doing to kind of continue to stay relevant and evolve and stay competitive as we're in like the fastest changing time in our world, right? Yeah.
No, it really, really is. And honestly, what I find to be interesting about that question is I find myself asking myself that every single day, literally, at least
Right.
once a day, if not multiple times a day. But the other thing that has been very beneficial for us, quite frankly, this year specific, I would say that the team that we have today understands the importance of all that is needed to be successful in this business. While there are certainly things you can't control, you might have candidates that go down to the 11th hour and then all of a sudden the job description changes or something like that, that you can't control. But the controllables that we can control, which is our own ego and our own attitude,
Right.
we've just got an amazing team for that, quite frankly. And at the end of the day, if we can stay true to that, they're bringing to the party, I guess my point is, they're bringing to the day-to-day new ideas, our whole team. When we
Right.
get together on this Monday meeting, we're literally collaborating and trying to figure out. So what are we
Right.
doing for the future? Really, if I'm being honest, we kind of went back to the future, if I'm being, because
Yeah.
we went back to the basics, of the blocking and the tackling and the idea behind, you just got to work harder,
Right.
the age-old adage, and not to suggest it's not true, but work smarter, not harder. I think we're in an economic times of you got to work hard, you got to work as hard as you want to work smart, quite frankly.
Right. Right. So that transparency core value is really something that kind of helps you guys stay ahead with the future of tell me what you got. I want to hear your ideas, keeps everybody in an open environment, not to hold things back.
It really, really does,
Yeah.
and it allows for people to not feel as if they're just, just along for the ride. I mean, they're truly participating in the day-to-day success. So,
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. When you look about like how your company's evolved, and what you've learned along the way, like what's one of the things you wish you would have known earlier?
one of the things, and it's went, as I think I even shared a little bit of it a little bit ago, but it's went both ways. The idea of me working too many opportunities, when like having too many verticals. One of the
Right.
things that's been challenging in our business has been the idea or the need to stay focused, and I would say as time has went on, the ability to really just slow down and just really focus on specific niches and specific avenues. So we've actually taken our time and we've split out these verticals, and it has allowed for us to generate more focus. And
Right.
that is something that's very, very hard in this business. I read something the other day on LinkedIn. It was very impactful to me, but it said something about I talked to a $150,000 recruiter, and at the end of the day, he was working for 15 different clients. He had 11 different roles. I'm kind of throwing some numbers against the wall, but at the end of the day, he was just throwing different numbers against. And then there's the $1 million biller that had 3 clients working on 3 opportunities and just focusing on the core values of what it is that he was good at. So,
Yeah. It's funny. I always say that there's, some people pride themselves on being busy and some on generating some revenue. So, it's it's very easy to be busy in this industry, right? And have 11 clients and only make 150,000 if you're not focused on the right activities versus true relationships with people that are going to,
I think reflecting on that, kind of back to what are some of the greatest challenges, I would say that is probably one that I think a lot of people need to be careful of. We've been working on some algorithms to show someone that's doing an awful lot of activities, but the result is maybe less versus someone that is working a marginal amount of activities and are having a great success, and I think we're trying to figure out that formula to ensure, hey, we don't burn people out because it is an enjoyable industry once you figure out, your rhythm. I mean, quite frankly, and you're impacting lives. I mean, it's a very, very fun industry for that. But at the end of the day, you can also by Friday at 5 o'clock be ready to go to bed by 6 because you just ran so hard for
Right.
that 5 or 6 days that you're exhausted, so trying to figure that out to ensure that you're not being busier than what the outcome is going to provide is a strong key to success.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny, the first thing I think of when you bring up the effort throughout the week is I work with a Nevada football team, and they have like GPS units that they track, and they can track basically their performance in terms of how hard they practice, which is they can actually track that now. It's not just like, oh, we practiced hard today. It's like, no, we'll just look at the data and we'll see how hard you went. And then and how much it correlates into performance in the game. It's how hard we work, how hard we prepare, how, what we're doing, the activities, and almost everything that we do in life adds up.
100%, 100%. And there's just that always balancing act, working smarter, not harder, but working harder, not,
Yep.
Somewhere in the middle is the answer,
Exactly. Right.
It's easy to work smarter, not harder to a certain degree, especially in today's world. I was talking to someone in real estate this morning, not had zero to do with staffing, but it was just on a different topic. And we were just chatting, and I said, how's business? It's been a little challenging the last couple of weeks is the short version. And she had just made mention, that, one of the things that I remember, she's been in business 25 years, is when we used to have to open up the phone book and literally just go down and just look at addresses and start calling, in this business, based on people that have got a lot more experience than I've got and where they started and where they're at today. While I realize and understand today is a grind, go back 25 years ago, that's a grind.
Yeah.
You're picking up a phone book or looking at, a career page on somebody's to go, do they have this experience, and that was barely before people had, websites and, and now we've got all these tools that just literally give you hand you the phone number, hand you the email,
Right.
But, at the end of the day, the other thing that's created, though, on the flip side of it is that's not enough. What's your
Right.
what are you selling?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're selling what everybody else is selling. How much better are you? So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. If you don't have a plan with messaging and plan with approach now, it's going to stick out because a lot of the time, it's evolved from, just getting their data. Well, everybody, I think the funniest thing to me now is when I talk to a recruiter and they're like, well, what's your, we have a huge database. I'm like, that shit's everywhere now, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
That was a big asset back in maybe the early 2000s, but now it's like, okay, cool. Well, you tell me your data, I'll go buy the same data for $1,000 this month.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to share this with anybody that's in this industry that isn't feeling the same way, but there was a period of time there where, get me 6 out of the 10 qualifications and, I'll worry about the rest, and again, now, we're at a period of time where, again, going back to the way this industry was intended, I'm having trouble finding this individual. I need your help to find this individual. Here's the 10 qualifications, but I would take 12. That's where we're at today, and so at the end of the day, it's just, what can you do to ensure that you perfect that and ensure that you're bringing to the party the best possible candidate and, not just going, gosh, it's been 3 days and I haven't submitted anybody. I better just hurry up and get somebody across. Rather than do that, communicate with the client and say, hey, I just want you to know, typically I've got a candidate over by now, but I'm having a little bit of trouble, but just know and understand I'm on the right path. That transparency is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Play the long game, have the hard conversation, have the real conversation. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I love the way you guys operate. It's really cool. And thank you for sharing, and being so transparent on the show here, with all the things you've got going on. We're wrapping up here with Brad Jones, the founder of Saige Partners. If you guys have any final questions, go ahead in the chat and drop those right now. And if you're enjoying this, go ahead and tap that like button so others can see it. Brad, what are you excited for next? What's on the horizon for you guys?
Honestly, just this may sound cliche. I'm kind of excited to get the election behind us. And I'm not even going to go into politics. At some point, everybody's one of the things that is about me. Yeah, I know where I'm voting, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I know the only thing I know for sure is the day after the election, I still have to get up and go to work. So I'm excited to put it behind me behind it just in general, because I think it's causing some procrastination, and some delays. And, we're a couple of weeks away. Just get that thing behind us. Let's start to build whatever direction that is. And let's get that path paved and let's start marching down it,
Yeah. I'm aligned with that, man. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't even care about the result anymore. I know who I'm voting for. I'm going to go do my job as a U.S. citizen. And then exactly like you said, is like, I'm going to get after it no matter who's the president over.
Yeah. And that's one of the things. Are you going to be upset? And I'm like, for what? I mean, sure. For what reason though? Give me the description and I'll join you. But you have to find a definition that makes sense to me anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, Brad, this has been awesome, man. If you could give one key takeaway for, aspiring leaders in the recruiting space, what would that be?
Never give up. I mean, at the end of the day, this is the same for when I was in transportation for 25 years. It was so cyclical. I mean, we would literally have 1 or 2 good years, and then we'd have one that was a grind, 1 or 2 good years, one that was a grind, and at the end of the day, we're in that environment. This year's been a grind, I mean, it's fraught with disappointment, but just know and understand that clients and candidates are also dealing with uncertainties. So, it's going to create some delays and it's going to create some concerns, but all you can do is just continue to grind. Is it going to be lucrative? Probably not, but you could get lucky. But, at the end of the day, it's just all about just staying true to your school, holding, don't get crazy. Don't shift outside of who you are as a person. So.
Love it, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today. That advice, all the advice, you sharing your journey, being transparent with everything. Where can everyone, find you that wants to connect with you?
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll certainly would love to connect with you, or at bjones@saigepartners.com. And Saige is spelled a little unique. It's S-A-I-G-E instead of S-A-G-E. So partners.com. So those 2 ways are probably the absolute best way to get a hold of me, and I'm pretty quick to respond. So
awesome, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Jones, founder of Saige Partners. Thanks again, Brad, for being here. We will be back with another episode next week here on the Relevant Recruiter Show. We've got some good things coming up. Adam Conrad from Great Recruiters, got Gary Staubel coming on the show here, another great coach in the industry. So make sure you tune in. We'll be live every Wednesday here. Got another one coming up with my partner, Alexis. We'll be, of course, talking about marketing. Brad, thank you so much.
Thank you very much
today. And for the rest of you all, I'll see you later.